If life is suffering, then what is the purpose of existence? From the moment we open our eyes to this world, we are thrust into a river that never stops flowing, a river of sensations, emotions, loss and longing. We arrive here as fragile beings, cradled in the arms of impermanence, and the first truth that strikes the awakened mind is this: life, as we know it, is suffering. Not because the world is cruel, not because joy does not exist, but because we cling to form, to pleasure, to identity, to permanence in an impermanent world. This suffering, dukkha, is not a punishment. It is not a cosmic mistake. It is a mirror that shows us where we grasp, where we fear, where we resist the natural flow of life. It is in this mirror that the Buddha over 3,500 years ago looked and saw not despair, but liberation. He did not turn away. He sat beneath the Bodhi tree not to escape, but to understand. And when he rose, enlightened, he offered not a promise of eternal paradise, but something far more courageous, the path of waking up, right here in the middle of suffering. You see, the purpose of existence is not to avoid pain. It is not to hoard pleasures. It is not to insulate ourselves from loss. The purpose is to see clearly, to live, to open our eyes and our hearts to the truth of what is, and to walk the path of wisdom and compassion without turning away. Our suffering arises because we mistake the temporary for the eternal. We mistake the self, this ever-shifting constellation of thoughts, memories, sensations, as something solid, separate and permanent. But the Buddha taught, everything that arises will pass away. Everything that we cling to is already slipping through our fingers. And this is not a cause for sadness. This is freedom, because if nothing lasts, then we are free from the chains of permanence. If the self is not fixed, then we are not bound by our past, by our fears, by the labels the world has pressed upon our skin. We are free to begin again, to see each moment as it is, fresh, vibrant, fleeting, to love without holding, to live without resisting, to let go again and again until there is nothing left but presence. This presence is the heart of the path. It begins with mindfulness, not as a technique, but as a way of being, to see without judgment, to feel without drowning, to observe the dance of thoughts, sensations, and emotions without becoming entangled in their steps. From mindfulness arises right understanding, the wisdom that sees beyond appearances, that pierces through the veil of illusion, and touches the empty, luminous nature of all things. We begin to realize the pain is not in the moment, but in our resistance to the moment. The suffering is not in change, but in our clinging to what we wish would stay the same. And so we begin to let go, not in apathy, not in numbness, but in love, in reverence for the fleeting nature of life. We release our grip, not because life is meaningless, but because its meaning is too vast to hold. This letting go leads us to a new kind of strength. Not the strength to control, but the strength to surrender. To walk through fire without being burned. To sit in silence and hear the music of the world. To lose everything and still smile. Because here, in the quiet heart of the storm, we find something unshakable. Not a self, not a soul, but a knowing. A deep, clear awareness that has no name, no edge, no center. It watches the rise and fall of all things. It is untouched by praise or blame, by gain or loss, by birth or death. This awareness is who you are when you stop trying to be someone. It is the still point in the turning world. The eye of the hurricane. The place where all suffering ends. Not because pain disappears, but because the one who resists it is no longer there. And so, We return not to the world as we thought it was, but to the world as it truly is. We breathe not to survive, but to awaken. We eat not to numb, but to nourish. We speak not to impress, but to serve. We walk not to arrive, but to be present with each step. This is the way of the Buddha, not a religion, not a belief, but a path. A path that begins with seeing and ends with liberation. And as we walk this path, we are transformed. Our thoughts, once scattered, anxious, consumed by desire and fear, become clear, spacious, compassionate. We no longer believe everything we think. We learn to watch the mind as we would a child, lovingly, patiently, without being pulled into its tantrums. We see that every thought arises from conditions. Every belief is the echo of past experience. And so we loosen our grip. We hold our thoughts like clouds, appearing and disappearing in the vast sky of awareness. This is freedom, but it is not easy. It takes vigilance. It takes humility. It takes the courage to face the darkness within us without turning away. Because the greatest suffering does not come from the world. It comes from the illusions we carry in our own minds. The belief that we are not enough, that we must achieve, possess, conquer, seduce. That only then will we be worthy of peace. But the Buddha did not wait for perfection. He looked into the heart of suffering and saw its cause, ignorance, not stupidity, not a lack of intelligence, but a not seeing, a forgetting of who and what we truly are. And so he offered not judgment but a torch, a light to guide us through the fog, a map to help us remember our true nature. That map is the Noble Eightfold Path, not a set of commandments, but a way of living, a way of thinking, speaking, acting, working, resting, and meditating that brings us back to the center of our being. It begins with right view, to see life as it is, not as we wish it to be, to see the suffering, the impermanence, the interdependence of all things. And from this view arises right intention, the deep resolve to live with kindness, with clarity, with non-attachment. These intentions guide our words, our actions, our livelihood, not from moral pressure, but from love, from the recognition that every being is suffering, just like us, that every being is seeking peace, just like us. And so we begin to act differently. We begin to speak words that heal, to do work that uplifts, to move through the world not as conquerors, but as caretakers, not seeking to dominate, but to understand. This is not idealism. This is the most radical, powerful transformation there is, the transformation of the heart. A heart that no longer clings, a mind that no longer resists, a being that no longer fears death, because it has seen that there is no separate self to die. And in this seeing, we become truly alive, not numb, not indifferent, but wide open, awake, radiant. We begin to love without holding, to serve without pride, to live without needing the world to bend to our will. Because we have seen the truth that the purpose of life is not to avoid suffering, but to awaken within it. Not to escape the world, but to become fully present in it. Not to grasp at permanence, but to flow with the great river of impermanence, and in doing so become free. Freedom is not the absence of hardship, it is the wisdom to move through hardship with an undisturbed heart. When we understand this, we begin to see that our greatest challenges are not obstacles on the path, they are the path. A stormy mind is not a sign of failure, it is a call to deepen. When fear arises, it is not proof that you are lost. It is a bell summoning you to remember fear is a guest, not the host. Anger is a flare in the sky, not the fire itself. You are the sky. open, vast, unbroken. And in this sky we begin to place our trust, not in the fleeting but in the steady, not in the ever-changing outer world, but in the inner stillness that watches without judgment. This is faith, not blind belief, but a deep, lived confidence in the Dharma, in the path, in the possibility of liberation. Faith, not as something you inherit, but as something you cultivate in silence, in struggle, in surrender. Faith does not mean certainty. It means trust. Trust that there is a way through suffering. Trust that peace is not a fantasy. Trust that your awakening is possible in this very life. And with faith comes clarity, not as something we force, but as something that dawns when the clouds of craving and aversion begin to part. We see clearly not with the eyes of the intellect, but with the heart that has wept, the heart that has bowed, the heart that no longer seeks to win, but only to understand. From this clarity, vision arises. A vision not of what we want to make the world become, but of how we are meant to live within it, humbly, honestly, gently. A vision that sees each moment as sacred, each encounter as a teacher, each breath as a chance to return. This is not grand. It is not glamorous. It is not broadcast in the noise of the world. It unfolds in the silence between thoughts, in the pause before we speak, in the breath we take before we act. The Buddha did not speak of conquest. He spoke of liberation. Not power over others, but mastery of oneself. Not the building of empires, but the quiet crumbling of ego. And yet this is the most powerful revolution of all, the revolution of the inner world. Because from this inner transformation flows a new kind of purpose. No longer do we ask, what can I take from life? But what can I offer? No longer do we strive to matter. We begin to realize we already do simply by being. This purpose is not something to find. It is something to live. It is born in stillness, but revealed in motion. In the small acts of compassion, the gentle refusals to harm, the courageous choice to keep the heart open even when the world tries to close it. And as purpose deepens, discipline emerges. Not the harsh discipline of control, but the loving discipline of care, the discipline of showing up again and again, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. We sit on the cushion not because it is easy, but because we remember freedom lies not in escape, but in presence. We return to the breath, to the body, to the now, not because it is comfortable, but because it is real. Discipline is the fire that forges the sword of wisdom. It is the daily act of recommitting to the path, even when we stumble. Especially when we stumble, and stumble we will. Because we are human. Because we forget. Because the tides of habit and ego run deep. But the Buddha did not awaken because he never fell. He awakened because he got up, again and again, with patience, with humility, with an unwavering dedication to the truth. From this discipline flows action, wise action, compassionate action, skillful action, not reaction, not impulse, not the blind lashing out of the wounded ego, but conscious, deliberate, loving response to the world. We begin to act not to fulfill desire, but to express love, not to chase validation, but to serve the truth, not to prove our worth, but to embody it. Every gesture becomes sacred, every word a prayer, every step a pilgrimage. This is the art of living, not in grand gestures, but in mindful moments. In the way we listen, in the way we breathe, in the way we hold a cup of tea. And as we act from this place of grounded awareness, a miracle unfolds. The illusion of separation begins to fade. We begin to see, truly see, that there is no other, that your joy is my joy, your suffering, my suffering, that in harming you, I harm myself. That in helping you, I remember who I am. And so arises gratitude, not as something we practice to feel good, but as the natural flowering of a heart that sees clearly. Gratitude, not for what we have, but for the chance to awaken. Gratitude not because life is easy, but because it is real. Because it is sacred. Because it is fleeting. We begin to thank the rain as much as the sun. We bow to the challenges as much as to the blessings. We see that each moment is a gift, even the painful ones, because they all carry the seeds of awakening. Gratitude becomes a way of life, a way of seeing, a way of loving the world, not for what it gives us, but for what it reveals. And what it reveals is this: we are not broken, we are not lost, we are simply asleep, dreaming of separation, of lack, of fear. And the path is not about becoming someone else. It is about waking up to who we have always been: luminous, vast, empty of self, full of love. But to wake up is not to float above the world. It is to enter it fully, to touch the suffering, to hold the dying, to feel the weight of impermanence and still choose to love. This is adaptability, the wisdom to meet each moment as it is, not to cling to what was, not to grasp for what might be, but to dance with the ever-changing rhythm of life. The lotus blooms not in still waters but in the mud. It adapts, it rises, it opens. So must we. We must let go of the past, not because it did not matter, but because it has passed. We must release our hopes for the future, not because we do not care, but because we trust the unfolding. This trust gives rise to resilience. Not the hardness of armor, but the softness of bamboo. The strength to bend without breaking. The courage to feel everything and still choose peace. We fall and we rise. We grieve and we love again. We are betrayed and we forgive. Not because it is easy, but because it is the way of freedom. This resilience is not found in the mind alone. It is cultivated in the heart, in the breath, in the body, in the willingness to begin again, to start over, to take one more step, even in the darkness. And with each step, we learn not just through books or teachings, but through presence, through silence, through the humble act of returning, again and again, to what is real. This is learning on the path of awakening, not the accumulation of knowledge, but the deepening of wisdom. Not becoming more, but becoming less. Less entangled, less reactive, less bound by the illusion of separation. True learning is not found in grasping for answers. It is found in the willingness to sit with the question, to rest in the unknown, to allow the mystery to unfold. The Buddha never demanded belief. He invited inquiry. He said, "Do not accept my words out of reverence. Test them, live them, see for yourself." This is the essence of the Dharma, not dogma, but discovery. Each step on the path reveals more of what we are not, and in doing so brings us closer to what we truly are. And as we walk, we realize there is no final destination, no grand prize waiting at the end. The path itself is the purpose. The walking is the awakening. The journey is the homecoming. So we learn, not to reach some ideal, but to be fully present. We learn to listen without fixing, to speak without needing, to love without possessing, to live without fear. We learn from everything: the laughter of a child, the stillness of a stone, the ache of the heart when it breaks. Each moment a teacher, each breath a chance to begin again. This is the sacredness of the ordinary. We do not need to retreat to a monastery to awaken. The marketplace is our monastery. The crying baby, the angry driver, the disappointment in our chest, all of it sacred. Because in all of it, the Dharma is whispering, "Can you be present here? Can you let go now? Can you meet this moment with an open heart? And when we can, even for a breath, we touch the freedom that the Buddha spoke of. We taste the stillness beneath the noise. We feel the compassion that flows not from effort, but from clarity. This compassion is not pity. It is not sentimental. It is fierce. It is steady. It sees suffering clearly and does not look away. It acts not to fix, but to hold. Not to rescue, but to witness. And in that witnessing, healing happens. Because to be seen in your suffering without judgment, that is love. To be held in your pain without being rushed, that is presence. To be allowed to feel, to grieve, to break, and still be met with kindness, that is awakening. So we offer this to ourselves first. We hold our own brokenness with tenderness. We bow to our flaws, our failures, our fears, not to indulge them, but to embrace them. To say, you too belong. Because only when we have loved the most wounded parts of ourselves can we truly love another. This is the paradox of the path. We become empty, and in that emptiness we become full. We let go of the self, and in doing so we connect with all beings. We stop striving to be special, and we begin to see the sacredness in everyone, the beggar and the king, the monk and the merchant, the child and the dying man. All of us spinning in the same wheel of becoming. All of us longing for peace. And when we see this, we no longer need to fight. We no longer need to prove. We no longer need to climb the ladder of worldly success, because we are already enough. Because nothing can be added to or taken away from who we truly are. This does not mean we become passive. It means our action flows from a deeper place, from stillness, from truth, from love. We become like a tree, rooted, grounded, generous, offering shade to those who burn, offering fruit without asking who deserves to eat. And we realize this is the true purpose of existence, not to escape suffering, but to transform it. Not to be untouched by life, but to be so deeply touched by it that we awake. To awaken is not to float above the world. It is to fall so deeply in love with it that you see the divine in all things. In the raindrop, in the silence, in the cracked pavement, in the trembling hand of someone who has lost everything. To awaken is to walk through the world with eyes open and heart broken. Broken not by despair but by tenderness. A tenderness that holds the whole world, even as it slips through your fingers. And in this tenderness we begin to live differently. Not as seekers, but as finders. Not as consumers, but as givers. Not as separate beings fighting for survival, but as expressions of the same vast, mysterious source. And that source, call it emptiness, call it presence, call it Buddha nature. It is not far. It is not hidden. It is here, now, in this breath, in this body, in this moment. It is the silence beneath the noise, the stillness beneath the movement, the clarity beneath the confusion, and it waits for nothing. It needs nothing. It's simply. So we stop chasing, we stop resisting, we stop grasping, and we begin to live, truly, fully, tenderly, because this life, this brief, wild, aching miracle, it is not a problem to be solved. It is a mystery to be lived. And suffering? It is not the enemy. It is the doorway. It is the fire that burns away illusion, the chisel that carves away the excess, the dark night that leads us to the door. So we do not ask for an easier path. We ask for the strength to walk it. We do not ask to be spared from pain. We ask to be guided through it. We do not ask to be perfect. We ask to be real. And in that realness, raw, messy, beautiful, we touch the truth that the Buddha saw under the Bodhi tree. that within every human heart lies the seed of awakening, that even in the deepest suffering there is light, that the end of suffering is not in death, but in life, fully lived, fearlessly met, humbly embraced. To live fearlessly is not to be without fear, but to meet fear as an old friend, to bow to it, to listen to it, and then to keep walking. Because now we understand, fear rises when we forget who we are. It whispers stories of loss, of danger, of not enough. But these are only echoes, they are not the truth. The truth is silent. The truth is still. The truth cannot be spoken, only. And when we live it, something extraordinary happens. We stop being at war with life. We stop needing to win. We stop measuring our days by what we achieve, and we begin to measure them by how deeply we were present, how fully we were kind, how honestly we showed up. This is the flowering of the path. We become still, not because we have no place to go, but because we realize there is nowhere else to be. We become soft, not because we are weak, but because we are unbreakable, and we begin to carry this presence into the world, into the broken systems, into the wounded places, into the noise and confusion and pain of being human in a time of forgetting. We carry it not as preachers, but as lamps, not as saints, but as companions. We do not walk ahead or behind. We walk with shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand, breath by breath. Because awakening is not an individual prize, it is a collective remembering. When one being sees clearly, the whole world becomes a little brighter. When one heart softens, the whole world breathes a little easier. When one person chooses presence over distraction, compassion over judgment, stillness over reaction, the whole web of life is touched. This is the ripple of awakening. Quiet, invisible, but unstoppable. And you, just as you are in your beauty, in your messiness, in your longing, in your love, you are a part of it. You do not need to wait. You do not need to become something else. You do not need to be more wise, more perfect, more spirit. You are already enough to begin. You are already the path. You are already home. So breathe. Right now. Just this breath. Feel the earth beneath you. Feel the breath inside you. Feel the presence that is not thinking, not doing, not striving. Just that presence is the Buddha in you, the Dharma in you, the Sangha in you. It does not shout. It does not beg for attention. It simply is. When you are with it, you are free. And in that freedom, you begin to live in a new way. Not with urgency, but with reverence. Not with fear, but with trust. Not with tight fists, but with open hands. You begin to see that every person you meet is a mirror. Every joy, a gift. Every sorrow, a teaching. Every moment, a chance to wake up. And this is the greatest offering you can give the world. Not your perfection, not your success, but your awakened presence. Your willingness to be fully here, to feel it all, to bow to it all, to love it all. Because in the end, the purpose of existence is not to escape suffering. It is to discover who we are within it. It is to open so wide that nothing is outside of our love. It is to walk, breath by breath, step by step, the path of the awakened heart. And in walking it, to realize there is no path, there is no arrival. There is only this moment, this breath, this light, and it is enough, more than enough. It is sacred. So let us live it well, with eyes open and hearts soft, with courage and compassion, with presence and purpose, with gratitude for the suffering that shows us the way, and for the love that never leaves us. Because if life is suffering, then the purpose of existence is to awaken. And to awaken is to love without fear, to live without clinging, to walk the world as a blessing, and to leave behind Not monuments, but moments filled with truth, with peace, with the quiet, radiant power of a heart that is finally, gloriously free.